All right, it is 11 a.m. We're going to get going. First, thank you guys, everybody, for being here. I'm going to be joined by my guest here in just a second. But yeah, I'm with you. Let's just say it's a good thing my video is off, except my video is not off. It's just a little too much. But only one person has gotten a haircut. That might be, maybe it's your spouse that's doing it for you. I know that's how it works at my house, and she keeps rescheduling me, so I'm behind. A lot of people look good no matter what, Mike. Here, I'll share the results with everybody. Here, there's the results. 48% say they look good no matter what. I love the confidence. All right, let's get started. We're gonna go into dental unit water lines, the maintenance steps you need to take to be CDC compliant for reopening after the COVID-19 shutdowns and beyond that. How are you gonna have a CDC compliant water line or dental unit water quality for every single one of your patients every single day? By the time this is all over, you will know exactly how to do that and probably then some. So first, a little meet and greet with my partner here, Mike Rust. He's regional sales manager for ProEdge Dental Water Labs. He's been with ProEdge since the beginning and has been part of waterline testing inside of dental for even longer than we officially became ProEdge. So lots and lots of experience, has 35 years in the dental industry, so knows a lot about a lot. He's taught me everything that I know inside of waterlines. And, you know, beyond just being a sales guy, I'm telling you, there are lots of experts out there with credentials at the end of their name. But Mike, you have spent more time inside of dental offices, practically learning how this all works and how to be CDC compliant, probably more than anybody else in the country for sure, but maybe even the world.
Lots of trial and error, mostly error. I've made every mistake there is to make, Kelly. So good morning. Thanks for everybody for being here.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. I'm Kelly B. I'm just the marketing guy. Like I said, Mike has taught me everything that I know, along with our other Kelly, Kelly T. And unfortunately, Kelly T couldn't be with us here today for this webinar. She had some other things going on. So that's a bummer for all of us. She's kind of a fan favorite, but I did want to introduce her to you. If you already use ProEdge laboratory testing, you may very well know her from consultations. She works with and has worked with thousands of practices across the country and helping them learn best practices and such. But even if you haven't worked with us in the past, want you to know her because she's often the person that you'll talk to if you need help, if you need advice, if you need insight. So just wanted to make sure you saw Kelly Timmis. Again, unfortunately, she won't be able to join us today, but our objectives, should we accept them, which we do, is number one, to arm you with the knowledge to become an effective and efficient waterline cleaner, maintainer, and also a safe water advocate inside of your office. You at the end of this will know exactly why this is important and exactly how to get great test results every single time. And so hopefully you're able to take that knowledge into your office, whether the rest of your team understands the value or not. Second, we want to help you know exactly what to do with this COVID situation. It's created a unique waterline problem, and at the end of this, you'll know what to do and how to make sure that you're good to reopen and have safe water upon that. And then the last thing is make sure you guys know how much Mike, myself, Kelly T, and our entire team at ProEdge appreciate all that you do. As much as we are a part of dental, we also are just patients. I mean, Mike and I sit in dental chairs at least every 6 months for our cleaning. And so as patients, we say thank you for all that you do to help keep us safe. We know the list is long. It's not always clear. Sometimes it feels arduous, and sometimes it's downright boring. And we get that. And so we know what you do. We know how much it means and how well you guys take care of practices. So thank you for that. A couple of things we need to just laundry list here to check off the list. Just know that ProEdge is available for consultations and testing. We've got a limited staff in our lab that's available for you. And then our Safe Water Specialist team, our customer service team, is available remote to handle all of your calls or all your requests. So we're there for you. This is a live webinar. Mike are doing this live. I call it a live dive. Thankfully, you don't have to see Mike or myself in our swim trunks. It's not that kind of dive, but
it's not pretty.
You will get an email after this webinar. Allow up to 24 hours for that to go out, but you'll get a recording so that you can refer back to it and look at slides or whatever you need there. Utilize the Q&A function. So there in Zoom, there's a chat function and there's a Q&A function. You'll see it in your menu bar. Please use the Q&A for all of your questions. And we welcome your questions. We love it when people ask questions. We'll answer some of them as we go through, but we'll also make time at the end to go over whatever questions you have. So if you can stump Mike, well, not only is there pride in that, but
yes, maybe not. You're not that hard to stump, but that's a idea. That'd be a fun thing to do. Ask a question.
Tell you what, if you can stump Mike, and he we'll send you 2 4-packs of Quick Pass at the end of this. How about that?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll cheat for you on the quiz, on the CE quiz.
Mike doesn't like to do that. So the CE quiz, we don't have a live CE for you, but we have 2 CE credits free via self-study in an ebook download that you can do at the end of this webinar. We'll show you how to do that. Again, it's free. It's a 10-question quiz. We will cover every single one of those questions in this webinar, so you'll be good to go and have no troubles with that. You know, Mike, like I said, he may even point out a couple of answers for you.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's right.
So, man, looking at this map, this is the ADA map on states that are allowing elective procedures. That's a whole lot of green compared to a week ago or even 2 weeks ago. You can find this map on our website, proedgedental.com/COVID-19, or ADA's website, ada.org. But 39 states are now saying you can open and do dentistry for elective procedures. Of course, you want to do that safely, which is what we're here to do today. But before we jump into Waterlines, I got a question for you, and that is, I got to stop sharing that. That is, when does your practice plan to reopen? This week? I'm sorry, not just reopen. When does your practice plan to perform elective procedures again? Because lots of you guys have been open for weeks doing emergency procedures or emergency care, and that's been awesome. But when are you going to go back? When do you hope to go back to quote unquote normal again? All right, a lot of June 1st or after, or we don't know yet, which is a little bit of a switch from previous webinars. I mean, most people don't know yet. That's been the vast majority of responses. We don't know yet. So there's still a lot of mystery. I know that's tough for all of us. Again, like I said earlier, we really do believe we're in this together, and we're sharing some of that struggle. When is dentistry going to go back to normal? And a lot of people coming with June 1st or after. So hopefully, right. That probably means you're in California or New York or Michigan, one of the tougher states to be in for that. So hopefully you're safe and your family's safe. But thanks for jumping on and doing this with us. All right, Mike, let's jump in. COVID-19, dental unit Waterlines. We've gotten lots of phone calls asking lots of questions about, people concerned, can this populate our dental unit Waterlines? Tell us what's true.
So yeah, we reached out just this week and spoke to Dr. Shannon Mills, kind of the godfather of infection control. Well, he wrote the CDC Guidelines, and he's the He's the undisputed expert on deluminant water lines. We asked him if COVID could populate deluminant water lines. He said it's really not likely at all, and it's nothing to worry about. He said, think about the way what we know about the way this virus is spread. You know, it's an airborne pathogen. It doesn't replicate well in water. So there are other things to worry about with deluminant water lines. In fact, COVID brings up a couple of points that are kind of COVID, you know, that are related to deluminant water lines. We asked him point blank if these tablets or straws or sock solution can kill coronavirus, and he basically said we don't know, but it's kind of a moot point. It's not the concern. There are other concerns. There are, you know, the problems. The other concerns, I think they kind of start with what are we going to do coming out and go as we go back to work. Our patients are going to be noticing our PPE, but they're going to be noticing aerosols more than ever before. In fact, you know, what we've heard from some of these surveys is that dental assistants, hygienists are not in a hurry to come back to work until they're protected properly. And one of the things they want to protect themselves from is aerosols from patients. And the patients are looking at the aerosols from handpieces and cavitrons. And there's just hundreds of discussions about how to minimize aerosols, and there's tons of emails about how to buy products for sale to help you do that. Do we have to go back to hand scaling in the short term? There are, you know, we get it. It's a big concern. People are going to be paying attention to aerosols. And so we think there's a positive message in all this, right, Kelly? I mean, there's a positive marketing message that can come out of this. And I think you're smart to be here today. By the way, thanks for being here. It's really cool that you guys, after all these webinars, that'd be a great question, Kelly. Let's ask a poll.
How many webinars have you done?
Into, you know,
Yeah.
how many webinars have you been to? And then how many you got left in you? And the answer is none. So thanks for joining us today after a month of all of this stuff. But you guys are really pros to be here. And you're pros if you're showing off your infection control procedures coming out of COVID. I think you want to brag about all the stuff you've been doing all along and all the stuff you're doing for the first time. I think that's a great idea, great opportunity.
Now, Mike, there is if COVID inside of Waterlines isn't the issue, but there is an issue that COVID does present inside of dental Waterlines. Take us through what that is.
Well, obviously we've been shut down, right? We've got at least operatories have been shut down. In many cases, total offices and total buildings have been shut down. And that COVID led to that, which led to, you know, shutdowns that increased the stagnation within deluminant water lines. And that increased stagnation is just a great time for biofilm to party and reproduce. And that's what is going on in there. Biofilm loves stagnation, and there's nothing in there to stop them from reproducing like crazy. And that's what biofilm does. By and large, that biofilm is non-pathogenic, but it creates the environment that is perfect for some pathogens. Not COVID, but certainly Pseudomonas, Legionella, which is a concern, and this new one that we've just learned about in the last few years, Mycobacterium abscessus, which is really nasty.
So we need a protocol, or you guys need a protocol to know how do you open your practices given this situation? How do you do this safely? Well, we've come up with a 3-step protocol. We love our 3 steps. You'll hear that later. This protocol is available on our website. You can go to proedgedental.com/COVID-19. It's one of the first buttons there on that page. You can download that, and it'll something you can print out and take to your office that details some of the things that we're going to talk about. But 3 steps: purge if your reopen is unknown. Maybe you shut down your practice in a rush and didn't do this when you first shut down, and you still might need to do it if reopen timeline is 2 weeks or more. And then before you reopen, that week prior, you want to shock your water lines, and then 3 days at least before reopen, you want to test to make sure that the shock was effective and all that biofilm that's been sitting in there developing has been killed and removed by that shock, so you know you're CDC compliant going in. So I realize a lot of practices have already done this, but some haven't. So I do want to visit it and just to make sure. And some of them we've talked to a lot of practices about this, and sometimes people didn't do it totally to the manufacturer's instructions. So just want to make sure it's clear. So purging your lines, the simple practice of getting all of the water, or as much water as you possibly can, because you can't get it all out, but as much water as you possibly can out of those water lines. So you empty the bottle, put the bottle back on, and then flush the air through there, pushes all that water out, and now hopefully it's as dry as possible. You want to do that even if you're using tablets. So usually tablets, they say not to purge in their instructions for use. And under normal circumstances, we think that's a great option. But under these circumstances, with timelines unknown, you might want to purge with your tablets, even if you're using tablets. So again, empty bottle, reattach, purge. If you're using the Dentipure straw, this is the iodine-based straw. Or also Hugh Freedy's straw is also an iodine-based straw. You want to take the straw off, wipe it down, put it in a Ziploc bag, label the operatory number and the straw installation date, and then store that away from light. Again, now with that removed, you put the water bottle back on, empty, purge those lines, and then Dentipure says you want to shock and retest as well, or shock and test before you reopen as well. So that's just the unique process of purging that comes with Dentipure or Hugh Freedy, the iodine-based straws. If you're using Stericyl straw, the silver-based straw, it's a little bit different. You empty that water bottle, but you're going to leave the straw in place. So you're not putting it in a bag or anything like that. You're just leaving the straw in place, and then you purge your lines. And again, Stericyl recommends that before you return to routine care, you shock and test to make sure then any biofilm that's built up is taken care of. Now, a lot of practices have just been doing emergency procedures, and so they may not be using the handpiece, or may not be using some of the or using the scaler, or may not be using some of the handpieces. So you can't purge. You can't isolate a water line, a specific water line, and purge. You either purge the whole operatory or you don't purge at all. It won't be effective to try and purge a single water line. So if that's the case, you want to just continue your tablet or straw treatment. You want to flush more often. We would say a minimum of 2 to 3 times, at least 3 times a day, but maybe even more than that. Really, as much as you can. Just keep that antimicrobial from the tablet or straw moving through those water lines, and limit that stagnation as much as possible. So even if you're just using the air water syringe, you want to run and flush those other lines that you're not using, so that, again, that stagnation is limited. And then test to make sure that you've got CDC compliant water. That's step 1 on the different products. Might take us to step 2 and step 3.
Great. So like Kelly said, by now you've already probably done that. And I thought the poll results were super interesting, that almost 80% said not until June are we going back to elective dentistry, at least amongst the people on this call, which is kind of interesting. So that means there's still 2 weeks at least. And so if you haven't purged, there's still time to purge. But when you get back in there, you want to get in there, the week before. Remember, Crosstex makes a good product. We like it because it has the best results based on our data, right, Kelly? It's not a perfect product, but it's got a bright pink dye in it that makes it a visual indicator. So it's a good product. And remember, so Liquid Ultra by Crosstex. We like it. We also like a diluted bleach solution. It works in 10 minutes. You dilute it 1 to 10. But with these solutions, you never want to shock through a straw. And so what you do is you take that off and put on this, what we call a dummy straw, which is a temporary tube. So you just use it to, you got one there, don't you, Kelly?
Yeah. So if you are using a straw product, either a Dentipure straw or a Stericyl straw or a Hugh Freedy straw, you don't want to shock through these. If you're using Crosstex Liquid Ultra or diluted bleach, or the vast majority of other shock products, it will ruin the straws. So ProEdge has a solution for you. It's called we call it a dummy straw. I don't know if it was named after me or what, but anyway, you go to proedgedental.com/dummy with a Y, and you can request this. We'll ship it to you free. It's complimentary, comes with instructions for use. But basically, it's just it's dumb straw. It's a dummy. It's an uptake tube. There's no low level or there's no antimicrobial properties to this tube. It just enables you to take this straw off, the Sterisil or the Denapure straw. You can take that easily off and just twist this back on. And now you've got an uptake tube that you can use to grab that shock solution. So if you need one of those, head to proedgedental.com/dummy with a Y, and you can request that complimentary. We'll get those out to you so you can shock and not ruin those straws. And again, just like Mike said, we like two solutions: Crosstex Liquid Ultra and diluted bleach. We don't work for Crosstex. Crosstex, they just make a great shock product. And then diluted bleach also works really effectively. Obviously, it's economical there and does it in 10 minutes, whereas Liquid Ultra requires overnight. But those are the two best that we find from a data perspective, and recommend those highly. But what's the third step, Mike?
So obviously, like I say, if we want to get there the week before. We want to shock our water lines, and then we want to test it to make sure that we got a green light, that we know our water is safe. We do this so to protect our patients and our staff and our reputation too. So we want to ensure that we're in compliance with the CDC guidelines, which is just 500 colony forming units per milliliter of water. That's the drinking water standard. By the way, this document, this PDF is really nice. It's available on our website, and it's got links that goes directly to whichever manufacturer, whether it's Sterisil or Denapure, and you can click right to it. So that makes it convenient. If you've got multiple devices or products in your office, we've got it all in one place for you. But yeah, so I think you want to make sure that you test your lines before you resume care. And because it's more than ever. Remember, this has been an interim break. There's been a break. We're going to start fresh. We want to start with clean water.
So what if you're not using a tablet or straw, Mike?
Right. So there are the other options out there are, let's say you've got a Denapure or municipal Denapure cartridge that goes in the junction box in the foot of the chair, and you don't have water bottles. We really recommend retrofitting. We like that water bottles on every chair or on every unit, because if you have a water bottle, you're gonna have clean water in 10 minutes. You put 1 to 10 bleach in there, and 10 minutes later, your water's safe. It gives you control. If you don't have a water bottle, there's no easy way to shock your water lines so that you can, so it's hard to get good results. So we love water bottles. We don't make them, but every chair equipment company makes them. Just call your favorite service technician, and they can come out and do as many as you need in an afternoon, and you'll be good to go. Now's a great time to retrofit. The other products that are out there are these big centralized systems, and there's some of them you can shock through. This one, the VistaClear, you can shock through it right out of that, and all those blue devices at the top, each one of those goes to a separate operatory. So it takes a half a day or so to do it. So there's some downtime involved. You can get passing results with them, but in our experience, people occasionally get frustrated with these kinds of products, and they end up, if they don't have water bottles, they may end up retrofitting, because again, once you have water bottles, you've got control. It's easy to shock from the water bottle to the air water syringe to the high-speed handpiece of the catheter.
And so with that, just a fair warning to everybody, these systems are very expensive. They tend to promise the world. And again, like Mike said, when we've looked at our data, they don't tend to deliver the world. So we just fair warning on that. If you've got one, you can regularly service them. And it does take that regular servicing. So definitely look at your manufacturer's instructions for use on that, and make sure you're following them, because they do tend to struggle and can exacerbate the problem rather than fix it. So one of the other issues that we're actually just learning, and it kind of seemed like it popped out of nowhere as people realized, everybody's been working from home, and all of these office buildings around the country have been sitting stagnant as well. Their water lines have been sitting stagnant, just like our dental units. And so building water lines can be hubs for Legionella, which is one of the pathogens that likes to live inside of dental unit water lines. So with that, the CDC has made several recommendations to office buildings that you flush your water lines before you just start drinking them or start turning on the air conditioning and that sort of thing. So again, Legionella, there is concern that that might be populating the building water lines after they've been sitting stagnant for 8 weeks like the rest of us. So when you go back, before you fill your dental unit water bottles with the tap water from the building, you want to flush those sinks. We talked to Shannon Mills, right, Mike? He said 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a potential problem, but there's an easy fix. Just run your water, every device, every faucet, every shower head, whatever you've got, run them, eye wash station, run them all for 30 minutes and just get good water back into those systems, cleaner, safer water.
Now, a lot of practices have just been doing emergency care, Mike. And so there's kind of a note there, even though not every emergency is a surgical procedure, we do want to talk about this. So what's the need for sterile water with COVID-19 and emergency care?
This goes to the CDC guidelines too, that say sterile water must be used from a sterile source for surgery. And there's a great information, I think, available even on the ADA website. It's got a list of procedures that are called surgical procedures, right? So generally, if there's a scalpel or a suture involved, you got to use sterile water from a sterile source, and don't buy sterile water and put it in your dental water lines. It's not sterile anymore. You want to use sterile water from a sterile source. You can deliver it through, a bulb syringe or some other single-use disposable device, for irrigation. And for the handpieces, usually a surgical handpiece will have an external water attachment so you can use. So that the water that you're using is sterile water from a sterile source, or sterile saline people use as well.
Real quick, got some questions about the reopen protocol. Again, that's at proedgedental.com/COVID-19, and it'll be one of the first buttons on your left. You should see a picture of this. And you can just hit that download button and it should be there, Barbara, for you. But the reason why we bring up the sterile water sterile delivery system is there's still a lot of misinformation about this. And it's a really important topic. In February, just a few months ago, a dentist in New Jersey hit national headlines because 15 of his patients got endocarditis, all of them without pre-existing conditions. 12 needed surgery, and unfortunately one of those patients passed away. So, and this dentist was not using sterile water with a sterile delivery system. He was warned multiple times and had a number of infection control breaches, but he was then suspended. So it can't be said enough. For surgical procedures, you want to use sterile water and sterile delivery system. Again, there's the definition from the CDC guidelines as to what a surgical procedure is. You can find that in their 2003 guidelines on infection control for dental care. All right, Mike. So, why is bacteria a problem in our water lines? Okay, bacteria is everywhere. I put my hand on my desk. Now I got lots of bacteria on my hand, right? There already was some. But why is this a problem inside of dental unit water lines?
Well, yeah, that's a good point, Kelly, because a lot of the bacteria that grow in dental unit water lines are non-pathogenic. But we've recently learned that there are some pathogens, particularly this nasty one called Mycobacterium abscessus. So Mimi Morales was one of the first kids to show up at Children's Hospital of Orange County. And it was a miracle that the doctor that was on call that weekend was a pediatric infectious disease expert. And even she said it was one of the worst infections she's ever seen. And another miracle, 2 weeks later, when a second kid showed up with a similar infection, and the doctor started putting it together. They did a forensic history. It turns out that this Mycobacterium abscessus that grows in dental unit water lines and cause these infections is really nasty. Mimi had to have a couple of surgeries. They tried to remove as little of her jawbone as possible to minimize any, disfigurement. She was in the hospital for more than a month, and they tried all the normal antibiotics and ended up getting one that was used for leprosy, which had some nasty side effects like hearing loss and things like that. And then another kid showed up, and then another kid showed up. And when it got to be about 6 or 7 kids, well, they called us, right, Kelly? They called ProEdge. The Department of Health in Anaheim called us and said, do you guys use R2A, which is the gold standard for water testing? When we said yes, they said, okay, you're testing the water. So we knew we were kind of intimately involved in at least the water testing portion, and we knew the water test part of it. But what we didn't know was how many patients were involved, how many healthy kids got sick. So I would go to this website every week that was run by the Department of Health in I think Orange County, and it would say 12 patients, then it said 20. When it got to be 20 patients, it was on the local news, and they had these vans out front every morning inside this dental clinic saying, it's a parent's worst nightmare. You take your kid to the dentist for a regular procedure, and they end up in the hospital for a month or two. And that made it even worse, and this was just in Southern California. The rest of the country didn't see it. But when it got to be 30 kids, it was on national public radio. When it got to be 40 kids, I saw it on Good Morning America or CBS This Morning, one of those national shows. You might not have seen this, folks, but it was on the national news for a short time. And when it got to be 73 kids, they shut the website down where I was getting my information. So we didn't know how many healthy kids were infected by Mycobacterium abscessus caused by contaminated dental water lines. But Kelly, you've got an update on that, don't you?
Yeah, so part of the reason why that was the website got shut down is there were lawsuits, and lawyers started advertising on television and getting patients to excuse me. Oh, sorry, something got in the throat there. I apologize.
More Red Bull. Kelly needs
yeah.
Red Bull.
So what we've recently learned is that it's up to 200 patients are involved in the litigation against this practice, all with complaints of infection. And so it's a serious outbreak. The trial for the settlement case was supposed to be for April this last month. Because of COVID, it was postponed. They had to prioritize criminal cases, and so it's been moved to January 2021. But there's a big feeling, and it was talked about at OSAT boot camp this last winter, that this is probably going to be a pretty big black eye for dentistry. I wouldn't be surprised if in January, when this trial does take place, you don't see it in the national news again. It's a big case, and probably one of the biggest in the history of dentistry. It wasn't the only major outbreak. There was one in Atlanta several months prior where 35 healthy patients got Mycobacterium abscessus infections linked directly to dental unit water lines. This one didn't really reach the national news. There was a little bit of coverage in Atlanta, but there's litigation ongoing in this one as well. And what we heard from the key witness, again, at OSAT boot camp, was that Atlanta's case is waiting for Anaheim's case to kind of see what the precedent is and how that's going to be set. But the lab team here at ProEdge hears about smaller cases, smaller individual cases every few months, about every 4 to 6 months. ProEdge will get a call from either health department or a practice that's concerned. We've gotten a call from a prison that there was concern about a Pseudomonas outbreak. We got a dentist that was concerned that he did have Mycobacterium abscessus. We had single cases of Mycobacterium abscessus in other spots in California. So even when it doesn't hit national headlines, it does happen. Of course, there's a famous case of a 2011 woman who passed away from Legionella linked directly to dental unit water lines. And there's been infection cases that have been hushed by other litigation and going back all the way to 1993. So it is a concern. It is something we need to pay attention to, both for our patients' sake and for our practice sake. None of the practices involved in the Anaheim case are still, well, one of them was for sure shut down. The rest of them were sold. And so it's an important, and the the dental professionals, Mike, you can tell them in these two cases, the amount that they carried, knowing that this happened under their care, was pretty heavy.
Oh,
But
this just kills businesses, right? Yeah, it did. It's going to be a black eye for dentistry, Kelly. It's going to be a black eye for corporate dentistry too, because it was DSOs in both those locations, and they're going to, and the juror's going to know that this is a big company with deep pockets. It's not going to be pretty, you know. So
you want to protect yourself. All right, Mike, that's the why. What about the how? You know, I fill in my tap water fine. Usually most practices use municipal water, or they fill water bottles from their tap water. That's fine. So why would this be a problem?
That's a great question, Kelly. You know, maybe someone like you could come up with a slide, just kidding, that shows that bugs grow in dental water lines because the water doesn't flow very fast. We like to think of the air water syringe as like a hose or a mountain stream where the water flows fast and tastes great. But really, it's a lot more like a pond and the way we use water in dentistry is 3 seconds at a time, rinse and spit, right? Or 3 seconds. In 3 seconds, the bugs and the bacteria go downstream a foot or two, and then what do? They reattach. That's what a biofilm's job is. Every time we use it, I love this, a good one. Especially in my yard, this is a good analogy. This time of year, my wife had me get weed and feed yesterday, okay? Because I got weeds. So think of it like a dandelion. Every time you use the air water syringe, it's like blowing on a dandelion. You're just spreading little seeds of biofilm down the line, and see those things flying through the air. That's planktonic bacteria heading for your patient's mouth. Most of it's non-pathogenic. Don't freak out, but it's a good metaphor. I think it's a good illustration of it. And there's a couple of important things on this slide. I like over here on the lower right, where it's biofilm's job is to attach, and then to grow, and then to detach, to become planktonic and grow downstream or even upstream, and repeat that process. And believe me, they reproduce exponentially. Shannon told us yesterday that 20 CFUs of Pseudomonas in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning will be over 1 million by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not true of biofilm in general, but biofilm does grow quickly. Kelly, you like that Barbeau study that shows it took a week to go from 0 to 200,000 colony forming units in sterile water and brand new dental unit water lines, right? So bugs grow in dental unit water lines, and it takes days for it to get to a high level. And that's why all those shock products are weekly shock products.
Now, real quick, before we go to the next slide, I'm going to wink, wink, hint, hint that you take a picture of this if you plan on taking that CE quiz later today, because there just so happens to maybe be 2 answers to 2 tough questions.
This is the questions that I got wrong when I took the quiz. So
there you go.
This is important. 1963, and municipal water lines use chlorine. Municipal water supplies use chlorine, which works pretty good. So Kelly, back to your previous point, the water that comes out of your tap is good. It's good 99% of the time. It's not until it gets to dental water lines where the lines are small, you know, and the water sits for 23 and a half hours a day. That's 99% of the time the water's sitting stagnant. Even in the busy days pre-COVID, 99% of the time, those bugs were in there reproducing like crazy. So that's why it's hard for these low-level antimicrobials to keep up. That's why we got to shock more often than we think.
So then the question is, we've got the why, we've got the how this becomes a problem. The question is, what do we need to do? So the CDC has had the same guidelines on dental unit water quality since 2003. And dedicated CDC compliance, knowing what those guidelines are, is going to get you great results. It's going to keep your patients safe. Tatiana, I see your question about the outbreak. It's the way that you can avoid situations like that. So dedicated CDC compliance. And then the documentation of that CDC compliance is actually what keeps your practice safe, because there are 33 state dental boards that require CDC compliance as law. And so if there's ever a patient complaint, dental board comes in, they show you the 18-page CDC infection prevention checklist, and they say, show me your waterline test results. And if you don't have them, there's a challenge there. So knowing exactly what the CDC says in terms of water quality is really important. The first one we talked about at length with New Jersey dentists and emergency care. If you're doing surgical procedures, you want to use sterile water and a sterile delivery system. Again, if you put sterile water in your dental unit water bottles, it's no longer sterile. So it needs to be a sterile delivery system. The second major piece is your dental unit water quality. And the standard there is it's got to meet the standard for potable or drinkable water set by the EPA. And it's got to contain less than 500 colony forming units of heterotrophic bacteria per milliliter. Now they have recommendations in terms of how you get that. You've got independent water bottles, flushing, chemical treatment, that's like a tablet or a straw, and then shot treatment. But whatever combination of those you use, it's meeting the 500 CFU standard, you're good. If you're using all those, but it isn't meeting the standard, you're not good. So it's less about, have you done one of these things? And it's more about, are you meeting that standard? And so the third, what we call the pillars of CDC compliance for dental water quality is verification of compliance. Having documentation that shows that you are compliant. And that happens through testing of your dental unit water quality and also documentation of your training and that you have a protocol in place. Those things will be your practice's protection. Now, Mike, with these pillars, a lot of practices are doing some of this. Some of them are doing all of this. And unfortunately, looking at the data, it's not as good as we hoped.
We're 42 minutes into this webinar and we haven't said the name John Molinari yet. So John Molinari wrote the most comprehensive dental unit waterline study ever. Him and Nancy Dewhurst analyzed 22,000 water tests data collected anonymously. And what we learned was that, these products that we're buying and using are creating a pass rate of 69% overall. It's not necessarily something to write home, but it's not necessarily the products. That's not necessarily the reason why they fail 31% of the time. They dug a little deeper and they looked at the different types of products. And what we learned is that you've got to follow the instructions for use, and you got to have a really good 3-step protocol that's been developed. Those people who did read the instructions and shock with a shock product and use a tablet passed almost 90% of the time, which is almost perfect considering office turnover and first-time testers. It's pretty impressive. This is not an indictment on straws or tablets. We love straws, we love tablets. We know that they all can get excellent results. They all can fail, but they have to be used properly. So there's marketing, and the marketing says just plug it in and forget it. And then there's instructions for use that says, now that you've plugged it in, don't forget to read the instructions for use. And that's what we learned. And so we know this helped smart people develop a really good protocol that will make it easy for you all to have really good water all the time and not need to worry about it. But Kelly, tell us about why that is. The low level antibiotics.
A lot of people respond, well, how can a tablet or how can a straw be failing? I'm dropping it in every time. I've installed it. Well, the reality is that both tablets and straws are low level antimicrobials, and they're battling biofilm. Now, biofilm rarely looks like this. If it does look like this, most of you know there's a problem, although there are some times we hear that patients are complaining that they seem to be swallowing little worms. Or they feel like they're swallowing slimy little worms. If a patient says that, you got a biofilm problem. But usually it's microscopic. You don't see it, and you still have way more than the standard. But any of the low-level antimicrobials, the tablets, the straws, the drops, they're good. They're good at what they do. And what they've been designed to do is handle low levels of bacteria and to inhibit attachment and growth. But with biofilm, and you're constantly reinforcing the bacteria every time you hit the air water syringe, as that water goes from one side of the water line to the other side of the water line or down the stream, like Mike said with the dandelions. And so they get overwhelmed. And the low-level antimicrobials, they perform really well. But if the line isn't clean already, or if you're just relying on that forever, it's not going to be enough to take care of it. And so that's why shocking your lines becomes necessary. So a shock product is a waterline cleaner. It gets them to 0 colony forming units to be simplistic with it. So shock products are strong disinfectants that kill and remove bacteria. And the reason why they're so good at it is because they're strong chemicals. They're not safe for patients. But low-level antimicrobials like tablets and straws, they're not line cleaners, they're clean line maintainers. And so they inhibit the attachment and the growth and kill small amounts because they're not as strong. They have to be ingestible. They have to be safe for patient contact. So I like to think of this as shocking is your regular dental cleaning. Brushing is your tablet or straw. It's the daily treatment that I'm supposed to do. You tell me as a clinician, hey, Kelly, you need to be brushing every day because that keeps the biofilm at bay. And so that's my tablet, or that's your tablet or straw. My brushing is your tablet or straw. And then shocking is like when I go in for a professional dental cleaning. As much as I'm dedicated to brushing and flossing, I'm going to need a really strong, pointy thing digging into my teeth and making my gums bleed. I'm probably not as good of a flosser as I should be, but this is kind of an easy metaphor. Hopefully that makes sense. So it all points to a 3-step protocol. You shock your water lines, get those water lines clean. You want to do that before you treat. We recommend you do it at least quarterly. And then whenever you do a test and it fails, you want to shock those lines, get them back to 0, and then continue your treatment. And that's treating continuously. That's step 2 of the 3-step protocol. And that's using a tablet or straw. Every day, you've got treatment going into those water lines, maintaining the already clean lines from your shock. And then the 3rd step is to test quarterly. The quarterly frequency is recommended by OSAP, ProEdge, ADAC, a number of all of the infection control experts now that OSAP has come up with that. And we've found that it's really the sweet spot. So again, this is in that Molinari ebook, but the data shows that first-time testers actually really struggle to get passing results. Not because the practice isn't doing what the marketing said, but simply because they don't know what the instructions for use say, or there's a hidden problem within the dental unit. And that's why you want somebody like Kelly T that you can call whenever you want. She can help you place CSI and figure out what the underlying issue is. So now, the more you test, it's not like that magically removes biofilm from the line, but what it does do is it helps you find those underlying problems. It helps you develop that culture of safety and consistency with whatever treatment products you're using to make sure that they're being used the way that they're supposed to and being effective. So we looked at different frequencies and in the data, and CHCs and government clinics are required to test quarterly, and they also use the other 2 steps of the 3-step protocol, the shocking and treating, and they're getting 95% passing results. Everybody else, not so much. So again, with what we know about biofilm development and what we know about just looking at the data, quarterly is kind of that sweet spot in terms of frequency. And OSAP agrees. So even when your manufacturer's instructions are unclear or absent, maybe you're using one of the tablets or straws that don't make a recommendation as to when you should be testing. OSAP says even when that's unclear, you want to be regularly testing. And they say you want to test every month until you have 2 consecutive passing results. And then you move to quarterly or every 3 months at a minimum. So, all right, Mike, if that's the 3-step protocol, I want to do that. I want to get 95% passing results or better. I'm going to follow those 3 steps, but the testing one is relatively new. What are my options?
You can mail it in, then you get third party, or you can do it yourself with a paddle test. And the paddle tests they're confidential. They're quicker. The quick pass is a 2 to 3 day incubation. They don't require an incubator. They're not as precise, but they do give you a pass fail, and that's what you want. But those are the two options. You know, the gold standard, if you will, and the do it yourself method.
We've got this option here. This is a new thing, but it saves people a lot of money. So tell us about pooled samples.
I do. I love this because I'm all about saving money. And what I would say is I'm not going to buy one for every single line in my office, but I will buy one for every operatory and do a combined sample. And with a combined, what they call it, a pooled sample or a commingled sample. So let's say I got 2 air water syringes, doctor side, assistant side. I can take a little bit from the doctor side, equal amounts, doctor side, a little bit from the assistant side. If I've got 2 high-speed hand piece lines, I can put 4 samples in here, and that saves me 75%. I let it sit for a minute, dump it out, and then let it sit for 2 days. If it looks like this, I pass, and that means that all of the lines in that operatory pass. If it fails, I don't know which one caused the failure, but I'm going to shock them all anyway. So Kelly, this was your brilliant idea. I thought you had us look at the math, and what we discovered was that a false negative is not common, right? It's not going to happen. It's not likely to happen. Let's put it that way. It's very unlikely to happen. So generally speaking, because most of the passes are close to 0, and most of the failures are way over the average fail count is 30,000. So by and large, only 3% of the time are you within a range where if there's a potential for a false negative or a false positive. So the science proves that a combined sample, I can sleep well if I pass this, I think, and then I can document it, and that's what people do, and that saves me a lot of money, and I'm grateful for that.
And so, part of this was Shannon Mills and John Molinari came to us and said, hey, what about pooled samples? They liked it because it enabled cost savings for the practice so that they could test more frequently. And we said, yeah, well, let's look at the data, which is I hope there's a theme here of what does ProEdge believe? Well, believes in whatever the latest science says and whatever the latest research says in terms of how do you get consistently passing results so that you're CDC compliant and your patients are safe. So we're going to wrap up here real quick. I want to make sure you understand what's available to you from our team at ProEdge. So we have a laboratory testing kit. You can order this from your dental supply company, but it provides that third-party verification that Mike was talking about. And we use gold standard testing methods, which includes the R2A testing method, but also goes beyond that to vortexing samples, germicidal neutralization, which is recommended by OSAP and makes the testing reliable. And also blind sampling. So our lab technicians have no idea who's sending in a test kit, no idea whether what product is being used. All of that stuff is married later on with outside the lab. So all of that's done blind. Of course, we have overnight shipping included in our test kits, and we also have a subscription option. If you're interested in having that regular testing, but don't want to have to remember, you can just let us know what your favorite dental supply company is, and we'll take care of the rest. This is what the test reports look like we send to you after you get results. So you get that precise microbial count, how many colony forming units per milliliter you've got, you get a pass fail, and then you get a safety level, which is just a red, green, yellow indicator. Just helps you know, all right, what are my next steps? How do I make sure that I keep getting better results and better results? We also have the quick pass, which Mike showed you. That's that blue paddle. It's in-office water test. We've made a number of kind of cool improvements to it. It's a lot of people are really enjoying it. It's got advanced media formula, which makes the bacteria grow red. Really quick results. So the mail-in, it takes 7 days of incubation, which is, again, gold standard for that method. But the quick pass can do it in 48 hours to 72 hours. So you get results a lot quicker. It's got that germicidal neutralization, which again recommended by OSAP so that it's reliable for you. And then it's really cost effective because you don't have FedEx isn't involved, and there's the lab technician. It's all done by you inside of your office. This is a quick side by side to show you the red bacteria on the white background and how nice and easy that is to read. Kelly T were here, she'd tell you it's not a popsicle. Her son thought it was, and it's not a popsicle. So, but it does make it really easy to read. And so this is side by side, same sample with the other paddle that's available, the red paddle. This is the documentation for in-office water testing. So just because you're doing in-office doesn't mean you don't have documentation. You still want that documentation because again, like if the dental board comes in, OSHA comes in, they're gonna wanna see documents proving CDC compliance. So this is the quick pass waterline testing log, similar kind of process as the lab report in terms of that red, yellow, green, the pass fail, and the and kind of the remediation steps with that. You can download this off our website. Of course, we've got BlueTab Pro manufacturers. BlueTab, we're really proud of that product. It's 2017, 2018, and 2019 award-winning for best maintenance product by Dentaltown, which is voted on by professionals like you. You can get a free sample of that on our website if you want, and we'll make that available to you. We've got lots of resources for you. So, you know, like we talked about, we want everything that we create for education to be research-based, not just what some marketing guy wants to say, but what does the data say? What does the science say? What is Shannon Mills saying is the best option for you guys? What is John Molinari saying is the best option for you? So we build our education materials to be research-based and hopefully not boring. You'll see myself and Kelly T in those videos. Of course, Kelly T's helpful, and Mike likes to joke that I just eat donuts. Well,
yes, but the point is that they are fun, but they're educational, and yeah, there's a donut involved. That's a good thing.
So go to YouTube and you can just Google in there ProEdge Dental Water Labs and you'll find that. This is again Kelly T and her team. Want to make sure that you understand we offer complimentary consultations. So whether you test with us, whether you use BlueTab or not, we want to help you get better results. We want to help you get use your products more effectively. So Kelly T and her team are fanatical about knowing the instructions for use of every single product. So we're not trying to get you to switch to BlueTab, get everybody on BlueTab or something like that. We know how your products work effectively. We've got a lot of data that says these products work effectively in this situation. A lot of experience on that team, a lot of answers to any of your questions. So please utilize that team. We'll share contact information here at the end. But just know that we're always available to you, and I've got plenty of resources for you. All right. Thank you.
Woo. Thanks, everybody.
That was a lot. All right, we've got a couple more things for you, but that's the meat of it. Want to thank you all for being here. Like Mike said earlier on, I'm sure if you're not webinared out, you're probably close. And so we really appreciate you being with us. We've got a lot of great questions in the Q&A, so excited to get to those. Before we do, we are going to do some gift giving. ProEdge is going to play Santa Claus in May, or Christmas in May for you. How do you get CE? First of all, take a picture of this slide. That'll really help you navigate how this works. But go to proedgedental.com/COVID-19. Go to proedgedental.com/COVID-19. You'll scroll and you'll see John Molinari and Nancy Dewhurst's beautiful faces. You click download. That'll open up your ebook, or it'll go into your downloads folder. And on page 20 of that ebook, there's a link to you'll see a quiz, 10-question quiz, and you'll see a link that you can go to CDE World to take that quiz. Now you're probably thinking, man, it's too many donuts this guy's eating. Because how can there be a page 20 on a 10-page ebook? Well, it's a great question, but trust me, I promise you, um, we just had to finagle that a little bit so that it was manageable for you. But it's a 10-page ebook, but there is page numbers on the bottom. Go to page 20. There's page numbers on the bottom of the ebook. Go to page 20. You'll see that quiz, and then you see that link. Go to CDE World. You'll probably have to create an account if you don't have one already, but use that promo code there, and you'll be able to access that CE quiz for free. You can take it as many times as you need using that promo code. If you have any troubles, email us, contact our support team, and we'll help you. And then, of course, it's up to you. You got to pass the test. So hopefully you were paying attention. Again, we provided all those answers for you today. Now, how do you get the free 4-pack of Quick Pass? So the team at ProEdge, when COVID-19 hit, got together, and we started to realize, man, this is going to be kind of the perfect storm. Dental unit water lines are going to sit stagnant. Practices are going to have to shut down. So there's going to be a biofilm problem, and there's also going to be a financial issue. And we didn't want the finances to get in the way of any practice being able to make sure that their water lines were compliant. So we want to offer this a gift to you, 4-pack of Quick Pass. It's an $89 value. You can go to proedgedental.com/live webinar, enter the password dental together, all one word and all lowercase, and just submit the form. We'll send those off to you. We're excited about this opportunity for us to help your practice reopen safely. So to that, we would appreciate you sharing the webinar, sharing ProEdge, sharing what the opportunity is, but not necessarily sharing the link and the password. We want people to be fully educated to take advantage of this offer. So would appreciate that if that's possible. I will come back to this slide, and I will come back to the CE slide during the Q&A, but in case people need to get reminders as to how to access that. But here's our contact information, both myself and Mike, but also Kelly T's. If you, for consultations, any kind of questions about yours, want to walk through your protocol, want to walk through test results, want to walk through how to use the Quick Pass, any of those sorts of things, you can email her, and she'll be happy to take care of you. And of course, Mike and I are as well. But just know that Kelly T, even though she couldn't be here today for you, is there for you the rest of the time. So, all right, Mike, let's get into some Q&A. We got some great questions. Some of these I think we answered earlier on, but just to revisit quick, Mike, one of our participants asked, if I use city water, do I still need to treat and test my water line? And if so, how do I do it?
Yes, you do. And yeah, you'll want to test your water lines. It sounds like you don't, if you have water bottles, then you can always shock if you do fail. If you don't have water bottles, now's a great time to retrofit. My assumption based on your question is that you're using city water, and maybe it's not, and you don't have the water bottles yet. So if that's the case, the ADA says you're not likely to have great water, have water that meets the standard that it's untreated. So that's why we like water bottles. You can retrofit with water bottles, and then you can shock, and then you can either use a tablet or straw of your choice and follow that 3-step protocol that's been developed by smart people. It works very well.
So yeah, and the way to know that is the test. The reason why we make that recommendation is because if you're just using city water, chances are you're not getting great results. Like Mike said, the ADA has long stated that, and the CDC has long stated you're not likely to be meeting the 500 CFU standard if you're only using city water. Now, Mike, with that, if I am using municipal water and I don't have water bottles, what would your recommendation be to a practice that's looking at a cartridge, a municipal cartridge that doesn't need water bottles? What would you say to them?
I would say reach out to your favorite service technician and have them give you a quote to retrofit with water bottles. We think we'd want to put water bottles on that chair. What would you say, Kelly?
Yeah. So if the thing is if you don't have water bottles, you can't shock. And like we talked about with the 3-step protocol, shocking is vital. Again, shocking is just like a professional dental cleaning. None of the people on the webinar today would recommend that I just brush for the rest of my life. They would recommend I come in and get a professional dental cleaning, and that's what shocking is. And so if you don't have water bottles, there's not an easy way to shock. And so that's why we recommend that. Now, we have a question about New York State, and I don't know that we know specifically about New York State, but it says, is it legal to use city water in New York State? So I think it's similar. We're kind of hovering around the same issue, but what would you say to that one, Mike?
I'd say that you're right, Kelly. It's the state of New York, as far as we know, doesn't say whether it's legal to use water. The CDC and the ADA guidelines say that you should use water that meets the standard of 500 CFU or less. The ADA and the CDC also say that you're unlikely to achieve that without treating it. And that's why we like those water bottles. We don't sell them, but we recommend them because they're just easy. You can shock with bleach and have clean water in 10 minutes and then use a tablet, and you only have to shock 4, 6, or 12 times a year. If you don't use a tablet, you can still just use city water during the day out of the water bottle, or even out of just plumb directly, but you'd have to shock every week if you have the water bottles. So if you don't have the tablets or the straws, you got to shock every week. If you do have a tablet or straw, you can stretch the time between shocking to a month or 2 or 3.
Now, the New York State Dental Board does require CDC compliance. You're welcome to reach out to us and we can show you that language, but that is again, like what Mike was saying about using city water. It's not so much in this case about city water, it's about, do you have compliant water coming out of your dental unit, not necessarily going into your dental unit. We've found the vast majority of tap waters around the country are CDC compliant. They are testing their water lines. The city is testing their water lines all the time. If they have any problem, they shock the system just like you would with your dental unit water lines. They just do it with chlorine. But so the problem is not the water that's going into the dental unit. The problem is the dental unit water lines themselves, how they create stagnation, how they create big surfaces. Even though it's small water lines, it's high surface to flow ratio. And so that bacteria can grab onto those water lines really easily, attach, feed on the lines to some degree, and then spread and populate and grow and have families and have babies. And I mean, they are, Mike likes to say, it's go forth and multiply. While they don't necessarily have our blessing, they're getting that blessing from somewhere. All right, Mike, how about cleaning the water bottles? How do you clean your water bottle?
Good question, Myra. The ADEC likes to shock the water bottles with bleach. And I think they recommend it. Check their instructions for use. Check your instructions for use from your dental equipment manufacturer. Most of them have authorized the use of water lines. Remember, shocking is like cleaning. If you've got residue in the bottom of your water bottle, sometimes bleach is usually a pretty good way to go, but there are other things that you can use. You can reach out to us, but if you've got like dark residue in the bottom of a water bottle, a simple green works pretty good, or just certain detergents can work pretty good for cleaning them. But keep those in mind. Most of those are generally, if you're using a tablet, they are cosmetic. They're really mineral, not necessarily biofilm. If they're slippery and slimy, then that might be biofilm, and bleach would be the best solution there.
And that can happen when you're using, tablets are working inside the water bottle, which is one of the benefits of tablets. But straws, if you take them off and if you feel the straw and it feels a little slimy, that can be a sign that probably your bottle is also having troubles. But Tatiana asks a clarifying question about flushing the lines for 30 minutes. So, and Jennifer, thank you for jumping on there and helping Tatiana out. But just to make sure that hammer that one home, you only flush your building lines for 30 minutes. So if you work in a big building, if you're in an office building with multiple stories, that's where the issue is of greatest concern. And so when you go into the office, you might just turn the faucets on and let them run for a while, flush your toilets a couple times, eye shower if you have one, shower if you have one, and just get that water moving through the system. You want to do that. So that's just for your premise plumbing, your building plumbing, not for your dental unit water lines. For dental unit water lines, you want to flush 2 to 3 minutes at the beginning of the day, 20 to 30 seconds in between patients. So again, Jennifer, thanks for clarifying that. Tatiana, hopefully that makes that very clear for you. Let's see. Tatiana, and we talked about this a little bit, but she also wants to kind of dive deeper in the Anaheim outbreak a little bit. How can practices, Mike, what could the practice have done differently to avoid the outbreak?
They could have tested their water. Then they would have known that it was time to treat it. And that's really the short answer. Yes, if this was untreated water and it was untested water. So we heard that, I think, directly from the Department of Health, that if they had tested their water, this wouldn't have happened. So this is why we test our water. It is important. It does protect you and your patients.
And Barbara, I'm not sure you said what year was this. I apologize. I don't know where we were on that when you asked that question, but if we're talking about Anaheim, it's 2016 and Atlanta was 2015 from when those outbreaks took place. All right, Wenli asks, what system do you recommend to check your water? So what system do we recommend in terms of water line testing?
You can, the choices are what we went through. You can do the in-office one and do it yourself, or you can do the mail-in one. Either way, it's just one takes a little bit longer, but you get third-party verification. I would even use this for pre-testing and retesting, so that when I do the mail-in one, I'm testing with confidence. It's something to consider.
We had a question about the ThreeStep Protocol. And that's ProEdge, where to download it. It's proedgedental.com/3-steps. So it's right here on the bottom of the page, proedgedental.com/3, the number 3-steps. So hopefully that helps you out, Bruce. Tatiana asked, should we shock our cavitrons as well?
Yes, that's a great question, and it's kind of a two-part answer. You should shock your cavitrons, and sometimes you'll have a cavitron or an ultrasonic scaler that you can move between two operatories. So there might be a quick connect in more than one operatory, and you'll want to shock it in both of those operatories, because you want to shock not just the water lines on the cavitron or the scaler, but also the ones that go up to the quick connect. So from the water bottle to the quick connect. So it's a good idea to shock those twice, or if they're in two rooms, or if they're in every room, you want to shock them in every room, because you want to shock all those water lines. That's considered a dead leg. Sorry, this is that's a deep dive. If you have questions, Tatiana, give us a call. We'll walk you through it. The
other thing we say with that, Tatiana, is actually scalar or cavitrons, not cavitron specifically, but ultrasonic scalars. Those lines fail more often than any other line. Reason being is often they have some sort of unique water line connection. So sometimes they're not even shocked or treated. Sometimes the water sits stagnant more often and slower flow rate. Oftentimes they have longer lines, so there's more surface area for the bacteria to attach. And so what is it, Mike, 50% more often? 60?
50% more often. Yeah, and believe me, I've made every mistake you can make trying to figure out how to shock a cavitron. They are tricky. The lines are longer, and it takes up to a minute. Like Kelly said, they're tricky. It can take a minute. Normally it takes, when you hit the air water syringe, it takes 3 seconds before you see the pink stuff coming out, or before you smell the bleach. But with a cavitron, it can take 1 minute. Which is I started to freak out. I go, something's going on here. But the truth was, the lines are long and the water moves slower, so it doesn't have as much. So they are trickier, but they're worth it because they're, obviously we're doing more invasive procedures with those, maybe not in the short term, but that's the whole point. So yeah, Cavitrons are tricky, but worth it.
And a great question, Tatiana. All right, are we recommending purging the water lines between each patient?
20 seconds between patients is the ADA and the CDC recommendation. And just so you know, that is really, go ahead.
Flushing, not purging.
Oh, right, flushing.
We recommend flushing between each patient.
Yeah, good, thank you, good point. Purging, the definition of purging is to dry the lines, get the water out and leave nothing but in there. So that's a good point. So flush the lines, thank you. Thank you. Flush the lines between patients to prevent cross-contamination.
Barbara's asking, is BlueTab a shock tablet? And the answer to that is no. BlueTab is a maintenance product. It's a low-level antimicrobial. So it's step 2 of the 3-step process. It's a continuous treatment. We would recommend that you pair BlueTab with a quarterly shock treatment. That would be either with Cross-Tex Liquid Ultra or a diluted bleach solution. But thanks for clarifying that, Barbara. All right, we got a question on pooled samples, Mike. When you pool a water sample from one operatory, do you use a quick pass test or is there another test? So can you pool samples with mail-in or quick pass or both?
You can do both. Good question. You can do either one. It doesn't matter which one you use. Just take equal amounts from each device in a given operatory. Don't do a combined sample from more than one operatory. But if you do it from one operatory, that's a good question. You can save money there. That's a good option.
So you can see Mike's got the quick pass you can pool with, and then the graphic there is the mail-in, what a mail-in vial looks like. All right, Barbara asked for a 4-operatory practice. What should I order for test kits? So Barbara, if you are doing the pooled sample method, which again just saves you costs and gives you great data to act upon, you can order a 4-vial test kit. So if you do the mail-in, one of these guys, you order the 4-vial test kit, take a pooled sample from each of your operatories. So you test all the lines in your per each operatory, and you put them in one sample. Hopefully that I said that right. So operatory 1, you match up with vial number 1, and a little bit from the air water syringe, a little bit from the handpiece, a little bit from the scaler. You pull that all in one sample, and then you mail that to our lab, or you can do the same thing with the quick pass. You can use our 4-pack that we are going to send you, or you can order another 4-pack, or that's what you would order regularly when you start going to quarterly testing. Test kits, do they expire? A great question. So the mail-in, no, the mail-in test kit does not expire. Those are good to go. If you got a really old one though, sometimes we still get some that are sent to our old address, which was what, in 2015 or 2016. But so the mail-in, no. With the quick pass, yes, they expire within 1 year, or at 1 year they expire. So you want to order those regularly and not just stock up and have bajillions of them, because they will expire. All right, Mike, take us through shocking with diluted bleach. What's the dilution, and kind of that whole process?
Yeah, and Anne's asking that she has to shock her ADEC unit, so we always recommend that you defer to the instructions for use from your manufacturer. ADEC, up to a year ago, did authorize the use of shocking with bleach their diluent water lines, and they still authorize it for their water bottles. But by and large, I take the bottle off in room 1, and I put an ounce of bleach in, and then add 10 ounces of water, 9 ounces of water. So it's a 1 to 10 dilution, and that's enough to do 5 or 6 operatories usually. So you put that back on in room 1, hit all the air water syringes, hit all the high speed lines, hit the slow speed lines, try to shock the slow speed lines. If there's a Cavitron, you want to plug the Cavitron in and get the bleach in that line. And then I set my timer for 10 minutes, take the bottle off, go to the next room, and repeat that procedure at ops 2 and 3. And then, generally speaking, the timer goes off after 10 minutes. You can leave it in for 15 or 20 minutes, just don't leave it in longer than that. It's bleach, it's corrosive. But that's the important thing, is the contact time, 10 to 20 minutes. And then flush it, and then dump that bleach water out, fill the bottle with regular water, and flush it for several minutes until the bleach smell is gone. You're getting rid of the bleach, you're getting rid of the biofilm, you're getting rid of everything that the bleach removes. The bleach is great for cleaning the lines. And we yell, yeah, here's my suggestion. And go to our website or go to YouTube and just search ProEdge shock, and you can see Kelly eat that donut while you learn how to shock your water lines. It's pretty great.
Hopefully there's more value to it than my donut eating. But yeah, you can also go to proedgedental.com/shock. I just put that link in the chat box, proedgedental.com/shock. You can get access to that video. You can also get a downloadable protocol in terms of how to use diluted bleach, as well as more information on shocking. All right, Mike, those are our Q&A questions. If anybody's got last minute ones, get them in real quick. But Mike, any parting words of wisdom for our participants today?
Yeah, I just say thank you guys for being professionals this far into COVID. It is so hard to stay positive and motivated. We feel your pain. We're here. If you just want to vent, give us a call. Barbara McDonald, sounds like you're an expert. I would love to talk to you more. Give me a call anytime. Or give me an email. And anyone else, please. You guys ask great questions. Thanks so much for being a pro.
And real quick, Joni, we got a couple more questions, or a couple more questions coming in. Debbie, I'm not sure what you mean in terms of information for the samples again. Is that pooled samples? Let us know and we'll be able to answer that. But Joni asks, should we be purging our lines while we are waiting to reopen? So our recommendation, Joni, would be yes. If your timeline is unknown in terms of reopening, or when you're going to go back to elective procedures, or 2 weeks or more, we'd recommend that you purge those lines. If you're less than that, we'd recommend you're flushing those lines often. But if the timeline is unknown, or 2 weeks, you want to get in there and purge your lines. Now, a lot of people are headed back to work a little bit sooner than that, so that may not make sense for them. But if it's unknown or a long time, yes, please purge those lines. Debbie didn't get a clarification on what you mean by to get the quick pass. Yes. proedgedental.com/live webinar. Live webinars altogether, proedgedental.com/live webinar. Enter the password, dental together, submit that form, and we'll get that out to you, Debbie. Yeah, thank you all. We like Mike said, we feel your pain. We really are in this together. I mean, this is a whole dental thing. We're all going through this. We're really appreciative of you spending all this time. A bunch of you stayed on for the entire Q&A. We really hope that's helpful. If, again, like Mike said, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to ProEdge. Again, we do consultations all day long. Our team is available to you. We're happy to walk you through whatever your products you're using and make sure that you've got a great protocol, help you place CSI if necessary to get better test results. But we appreciate you. We appreciate all you're doing, and we'll get through this. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully it's not light at the end of a tunnel and then another tunnel. But it won't bring us down. Thank you all. We appreciate you. We'll send out a recording of this webinar, and Godspeed out there.